The world's two largest economies, the United States and China, are now locked in a confrontation that is reshaping the very foundations of international relations. This is not just a simple disagreement over trade policies or tariffs. It's a high-stakes standoff that is sending shockwaves through every corner of the global economy. The tension between these economic giants threatens to upend global commerce as we know it, disrupting the flow of goods, capital, and technology that has defined the modern era. Every shipping lane, every trade agreement, and every multinational business is feeling the pressure. What began as a series of trade disputes over steel, electronics, and intellectual property is now escalated into a full-blown battle for economic supremacy. The US is threatening to impose 100% tariffs on all Chinese goods, a move that would send prices soaring and force companies to rethink their global supply chains. In response, China is striking back with a $300 billion energy blowback, targeting American interests in oil, gas, and critical minerals. This tit-for-tat escalation is not just about money, it's about control over the resources and technologies that will define the future. The conflict has moved far beyond tariffs and trade deficits. Now it's about national security, technological leadership, and the future of global alliances. Both nations are racing to dominate next-generation industries like artificial intelligence, green energy, and advanced manufacturing, while forging new partnerships and alliances to strengthen their positions. The era of predictable, interconnected trade is over. Economic policy has become a weapon, wielded to protect domestic industries and gain leverage on the world stage. Factories are closing, new barriers are rising, and the rules of the game are being rewritten in real time. As a result, markets are in turmoil, supply chains are at risk, and the cost of everyday goods hangs in the balance. From the price of groceries to the availability of electronics, ordinary people around the world are starting to feel the impact of this economic Cold War. The decisions made in Washington and Beijing will shape not only the price of your next smartphone, but also the future of green energy, the security of jobs worldwide, and the stability of entire industries. Every policy shift, every negotiation, and every new round of tariffs has ripple effects that reach far beyond national borders. Understanding this conflict is essential for anyone who wants to grasp the forces reshaping our world. As the stakes rise and the rivalry deepens, the outcome of this new Cold War of commerce will determine the future of globalization and the everyday lives of billions. The October escalation was not a sudden event, but rather the culmination of a summer marked by mounting anxieties and diplomatic friction. Throughout those months, the world watched as tensions simmered just below the surface, with every headline and summit carrying the weight of uncertainty. There were fleeting moments when hope seemed possible, when diplomats exchanged handshakes and officials spoke of compromise. For a brief time, it appeared that cooler heads might prevail, and that a path toward peace could be found. In July, all eyes turned to London, where high-stakes talks hinted at the possibility of de-escalation. Negotiators from both sides gathered in ornate conference rooms, surrounded by the flags of their nations, searching for common ground. But optimism quickly faded. The US, seeking to secure its own interests, struck a major supply chain deal with Vietnam and began a sweeping crackdown on Chinese transshipment practices. These moves sent shockwaves through the diplomatic community. In Beijing, these actions were seen not as gestures of reconciliation, but as a calculated strategy of containment. Chinese officials voiced their frustration, warning that such measures would only deepen the divide. By September, hopes for a breakthrough had all but vanished. Trade talks in Madrid, once seen as a last chance for compromise, collapsed amid mutual accusations and growing mistrust, triggering a rapid and dangerous escalation. The US responded by blacklisting additional Chinese tech firms, further isolating China's technology sector from global markets and sending a clear message of confrontation. New port fees were imposed, targeting Chinese goods and raising the cost of doing business. These measures rippled through supply chains, affecting companies and consumers worldwide. Beijing condemned these actions as nothing short of economic aggression, accusing the US of trying to strangle China's growth and influence on the world stage. In response, China's leadership convened emergency meetings, vowing to defend their interests and prepare powerful retaliatory measures that would send a message of their own. The final straw came when China announced sweeping new export controls on rare earth elements and processing technologies, resources critical to global manufacturing and technology industries. With that announcement, the fragile truce that had barely held all summer was finally shattered. Diplomats left negotiation tables in disappointment, and the world braced for what would come next. The global economy trembled as trade war hotspots flared up, stock markets tumbled, and news outlets reported on the deepening crisis. An autumn of open economic hostility had begun. The stage was now set for a direct and potentially explosive collision between the world's two superpowers, with consequences that would be felt far beyond their borders. On October 12, 2025, President Trump stunned the world by announcing a 100% tariff on all Chinese imports. This move would double the price of every Chinese product in the US, signaling an all-out economic assault. Trump framed it as a response to China's rare earth export controls, vowing not to be held hostage over critical resources. Beijing immediately condemned the tariffs, calling them a grave violation of trade norms and defending its own actions as necessary retaliation. The announcement marked a new phase. The era of integrated US-China trade was on the verge of collapse. Businesses faced the prospect of a sudden, catastrophic rupture in their supply chains. Beijing's response was strategic, not symmetrical. Instead of tariffs, China threatened a $300 billion energy blowback, leveraging its near monopoly on rare earth elements and the technology to process them. These new export controls target not just raw materials, but the advanced tech needed to mine and refine them, crippling any attempt to build alternative supply chains. China's message: attack our manufacturing base, and we'll choke off your tech and defense sectors. The threat extends to energy markets, with Beijing hinting at broader disruptions. This is a surgical strike, designed to demonstrate that economic pain can flow both ways. The trade war has entered a dangerous new phase, where resource control is the ultimate weapon. Rare earth elements, 17 metals with unique properties, are the hidden engines of modern technology. They power everything from smartphone speakers and electric vehicle motors to wind turbines and military hardware. Without them, production of countless devices would grind to a halt. The US military relies on rare earths for jet engines, missile guidance, and advanced sensors. China controls over 80% of global production and more than 90% of processing, leaving the world dangerously dependent. Building alternative supply chains is slow, costly, and now even harder due to China's new tech export controls. This strategic dominance gives Beijing enormous leverage in the current standoff. The trade war's impact is immediate and personal. Global markets have plunged, with tech stocks hit hardest as investors fear a worldwide recession. US consumers are already paying more for goods, and a 100% tariff would send prices soaring. Manufacturing jobs are declining, not returning as supply chains fracture and costs rise. Companies face impossible choices: absorb costs, find new suppliers, or relocate factories, each option bringing delays and shortages. China's rare earth threat puts the tech and green energy sectors at particular risk, jeopardizing electric vehicles and wind power. The trade war is now intertwined with the fight against climate change, threatening to slow the green transition. The economic pain is spreading from boardrooms to households everywhere. The economic conflict is straining global alliances and upending diplomacy. US allies are caught in the crossfire, wary of being forced to choose sides. A planned Trump-Xi summit at the APEC meeting is now in jeopardy, with little hope for de-escalation. Trump's go-it-alone foreign policy is alienating partners and could push some nations closer to China for stability. Domestically, Trump faces pressure as rising prices threaten his support, even among his base. The political fallout is global, with alliances shifting and trust in US leadership eroding. The world's diplomatic order is at risk of being fundamentally reshaped. Experts warn we're in uncharted territory, facing a crossroads that could reshape the global economy for a generation. The world's two largest economies are locked in a standoff, and the choices made now will ripple across every industry, every market, and every household. Analysts have outlined three possible outcomes, each with its own risks and opportunities, and none without significant consequences. The first scenario is a managed de-escalation. In this outcome, both sides recognize the dangers of continued conflict and use the crisis as leverage to negotiate a new, more balanced trade agreement. The most extreme tariffs and restrictions are rolled back, and a fragile peace is restored. This would require intense diplomacy, careful compromise, and a willingness to address long-standing grievances on both sides. While not a return to the old days, it could stabilize markets and offer hope for gradual recovery. The second possibility is what some call economic trench warfare. Here, tariffs and export controls are only partially lifted, and both sides dig in for a prolonged standoff. Businesses face years of uncertainty, with higher costs, disrupted supply chains, and a world economy that becomes increasingly fragmented. Companies may be forced to rethink their global strategies, and consumers could see prices rise and choices shrink. The uncertainty would weigh heavily on investment and innovation, slowing growth worldwide. The third and most severe scenario is full-blown decoupling. In this case, tariffs and embargoes escalate to the point where the global economy is fractured into rival blocs. Trade grinds to a halt, supply chains collapse, and a deep recession takes hold. Mass layoffs sweep through industries, and the world enters a new era of economic and political rivalry. A kind of Cold War fought not with weapons, but with supply chains, technology bans, and export controls. The consequences would be felt for decades. Dr. Evelyn Reed of the Council on Foreign Relations cautions that none of these scenarios returns us to the old status quo. Even the most optimistic outcome would leave scars, and the world must prepare for a new normal in global trade and politics. Even the best-case outcome demands immense political will, creative diplomacy, and a willingness to compromise on both sides. Leaders must overcome deep mistrust and domestic pressures to find common ground. The path forward will not be easy, and every decision will be scrutinized by markets and citizens alike. The worst-case scenario would paralyze entire industries, devastate millions of jobs, and split the world into rival economic and political blocs. The social and human cost would be immense, with communities and families bearing the brunt of the fallout. The stakes are not just economic, they're geopolitical, technological, and existential. The outcome will shape not only trade, but also the future of innovation, security, and the balance of power in the 21st century. Around the world, people are watching anxiously, hoping that reason, dialogue, and cooperation will prevail over confrontation and division. The choices made in the coming months will affect billions of lives. The next moves on this global chessboard will determine the shape of the world order for years, perhaps even generations to come. We stand at a historic crossroads. The US-China trade war is now a struggle over the future of the global economic system. Supply chains built over decades are at risk of unraveling, with consequences for every consumer, worker, and business. Prices could soar, jobs could vanish, and innovation could stall, especially in tech and green energy. Politically, the world risks deep fractures and weakened cooperation on global challenges. The coming days will decide whether diplomacy can avert disaster, or if we're entering a new era of economic warfare. The outcome will shape the world your children inherit. Now more than ever, we must pay attention, and hope that reason prevails.